Dr. Patricia Porto, and today I'm going to take you through a session about on life sciences subject, and you'll find this on page 40 of your CAPS document, and I'm going to take you through biodiversity and classifications of microorganisms. You're welcome. So as we start our session, I want you to now just stop and think. Remember in grade 10, you have learned about ecosystem, as you see there. Ecosystem. You learned about ecosystem. And what do you focus on grade 10 was ecosystem. It's where now it's a community of living things that are interacting with each other. As you see there, the birds, they're interacting with each other and also with their environment. It can be a forest, as you see there. And then you learned about the web of life. And then here you were taught about that when it comes to animals, you find that they are connected. There's a connection between living organisms in the ecosystem. So there's a connection between these organisms that you can find them in a forest, which is an ecosystem. And this relationship can be whether on how they depend on one another for food or for shelter or even for survival. You learn about that in grade 10. So now I want us to take it up a notch a bit and talk about biodiversity. What does the term biodiversity mean? Stop and think now. What does it mean to you? And why do you think biodiversity is important for our planet? So as we are starting with this session, think about it. What is this biodiversity term? What does it mean? And why is it important in our planet? Stop and think before you continue with the video. So now when we talk about this concept biodiversity, which might be new to you, so it is biodiversity in English, and then if you are Southern Sotho person, we are talking about mihuda huda ya dipidi. If you are a Zulu person, we are talking about izinhlobo zezinto eziphilayo. So think about the word bio. Bio means live. Diversity means different. So what is the word biodiversity? What does it mean? The word biodiversity in Afrikaans, which is biodiversity, it refers to a variety of plants and animals in the world or in a particular habitat. So the word bio means live. Diversity means different. So this is where you find different life forms. It's when you find different animals and different plants. So now imagine that a biodiversity as a vibrant mosaic, that picture that I've seen you there, more like a complex artwork that is made up of countless colorful tiles. If you see that picture there, we called it a vibrant mosaic. It's more like an artwork. And if you see that artwork, it has different colors. So now imagine that each tile, those tiles there, each tile, it represents a different species, a different animal and plant, from small animals to big animals to majestic animals. Each tile there, it contributes to the overall beauty of this artwork. So if we remove some tiles, some colors, or if it was only one color, it was not going to be as beautiful as it looks now, because each color, it contributes to the beauty of this artwork. So now it means each species in our biodiversity, it adds to the richness and balance of our natural world. So for our natural world to be balanced, we need all these different types of animals because they contribute to our natural world. Okay, we're gonna learn more about it as we go on in this session. So now I also want you to again stop and think about this. When we talk about living things, what comes in your mind? Stop and think about it. Write it down. When I say living things, what comes in your mind? Commonly, as human beings, or as you, as me, commonly when you talk about living things, we immediately think about animals or others, even plants. because plants are living. You've learned that in your previous grades. So when you say living things, immediately in your mind you think about plants or you think about animals. But they are this small animals. We call them microorganisms. Micro. So when you think about plants or animals, to be specific, you're thinking about your cats, your dogs, your elephant, your lions. But you might not have thought about microorganisms. So we're going to learn more about microorganisms in this session. What do we call this? What are they? When we talk about microorganisms, this is where now we refer to very tiny life forms that are unseen with the naked eye. So we refer to them as microscopic living organisms. They are tiny and you cannot see them with your naked eye. So right now where you are seated, whether it's in a table or it's in a couch or it's in the chair, or you are in front of a table right now, you find that where you are seated, there are a lot of microorganisms moving around in your table, maybe because your table is dirty, but you can't see them. Why? Because they are tiny. So they are called micro, the word micro, because you can only see them with a microscope. So you need a microscope to see those little tiny animals that there are probably so many on your table where you are seated. So you need this tool here, this instrument here. We call it a microscope. You're going to need a microscope to see them. So the most well-known microorganisms we are referring to viruses, bacteria, fungi, and protists. Those are the well-known. They are the known microorganisms, and in this session we'll just focus on viruses. So you're gonna need that microscope to see them. So I think if you didn't know how a microscope looked like, that's how you look like. The person there that's looking towards those lens in order to see a microscope, to see a microorganism. Sorry. So now I'm just going to show you a short clip of a bacteria, how a bacteria will look like. As I said, if maybe you just went to a toilet, you forgot to wash your hands probably have a lot of bacteria and you can't even see them, and they multiply very quickly. So let me just show you a picture that shows how bacteria grow or how they even look like. And yeah, they multiply as you are sitting there not washing your hands. Look at this video.
They reproduce very simply and rapidly by doubling their contents and splitting in two. Just one bacterium, dividing every 20 minutes, could produce nearly 5,000 billion bacteria in one day.
So bacteria are very small and they produce very quickly. So if you are seated, you have not washed your hands, they can multiply in your hands that quickly, and you end up being sick and you don't know why you are sick. We'll learn more about bacteria so that you can learn more about it. Now I want to give you like an example that maybe might be more again realistic to you. Eating an apple without washing it. Let's say your teacher comes in the classroom and give you an apple and says, Tipo, Lerato, here's an apple, you can eat it. So if you eat that apple without eating it, you don't know how many microorganisms there are in that apple, how many bacteria are there. So let's just imagine that your teacher has given you an apple, you have not eaten that apple. Are there microorganisms in that apple because it's not clean? Look at this video here. We are going to cut one side of an apple. We are going to put it in those lenses, and then let's see what we will see in this apple that you have not washed it.
Under a microscope. Green apple under a microscope.
Okay, did you see? Those small things, green things, brown things, those are microorganisms. They are living. So if you eat that part without washing it, it means you have eaten some microorganisms and you wonder why you get sick. So those microorganisms, we cannot see them with our naked eye, but if we had a microscope, you cut it, you will see what are those microorganisms. Okay. Now, microorganisms, they can be not microorganisms, but like organisms, they can be classified into different groups. So in order for us to see where does this animal fall under, we need to classify them. And then we classify into groups known as kingdom. So if you're asked now, how does one know where does this animal belong to, or where does this plant belong to? Well, how you know that is by classifying those animals into different groups, and we call those groups kingdoms. So in order for you to know where does this animal fall under, you need to classify them into kingdoms. And we have 5 kingdoms. So there are 5 kingdoms, and then if you have your KEPS document now, you can find this on your page 40 to 41 of your KEPS document. So with the 5 kingdoms, we have kingdoms called Kingdom Monera. This is where you find your bacteria, and we'll learn more about this in our next lesson. You have Kingdom Protista. Kingdom Protista is where you find protists. Again, we'll learn this in our next session. We have Kingdom Fungi. With Kingdom Fungi, let me give you a brief case study or brief scenario. Let's say right now, your mommy came with loaf of bread, and then you only eat a few slices. You put it in the cupboard and you forget about it. 3 weeks later, you come and say, oh, my bread, this is 3 weeks. And then you open your bread. What are you going to see in your bread? Okay, I heard someone say green things. That's correct. You're going to see green things that are all over your bread. We call those things fungus. So they fall under Kingdom Fungi, and they are living. We'll talk more about it in our next lesson. Then we have another kingdom, Kingdom Plantaya. From the word Plantaya, I think we can all see the word plant. So yes, this is where we find our plants. We call it Kingdom Plantaya. Then we have Kingdom Animalia. Animalia, I think we can all see the word animal, meaning animals. So this is where we find animals. So we have Kingdom Plantaya, plants. This is where we find plants. We have Kingdom Animalia. This is where we find animals. Again, we'll learn this more in our next session. Okay. So with your 5 kingdoms, if you can see there, these are moneras. Moneras, this is where you find your microorganisms. We'll learn more about it in the session. And then you have your protista, you have your fungi, and then you have your protista, your fungi, and then you have your animalia, and then you have your plantaya. So this is what you find in your 5 kingdom. Okay. And then now I want you to again stop and think. Which kingdom do you think viruses are classified as? We've learned about, I've told you about that there are 5 kingdoms, which I've briefly introduced them. And then now, which kingdom do you think viruses fall under? Stop and think about it. Which kingdom do you think viruses fall under? I've given you a typical picture of a virus there, that if you were to look at a virus, how does a virus look like? That is a typical picture. It's more like it's something that is round and it has things It has things around it. So that is a typical picture of a virus, as I've shown you there. And how do we classify our viruses? Well, viruses cannot be placed in any of the five kingdoms. I don't know what was your answer, but then as much as viruses are microorganisms, they are placed as microorganisms. They are known as microorganisms. However, we cannot place them in any of the five kingdoms. And the reason for that is because they do not precisely fit into any category. They do not precisely fit into the categories of the living or the non-living. So with viruses, biologists find it difficult to say, are they living? Are they not living? How do we classify them? It's very difficult. And due to that, we cannot place them under the five kingdoms, but we do refer them as one of the microorganisms. Viruses are microscopic organisms. So you see now, we refer them as microscopic organisms, meaning we refer them as microorganisms. That can infect a host. So they are microorganisms that can infect a host, meaning they can infect a certain organisms like humans, plants, or animals. So they can infect you. So the most commonly known disease caused by viruses, it includes flu. So flu is a commonly known disease caused by viruses. So if we delve more into the characteristics of viruses, like how do you see that this animal is a virus, or this organism is a virus, or this thing is a virus, since we say they are neither living or non-living. However, biologists do refer them as microorganisms. So number one, they do not directly use energy. So viruses do not directly use energy, unlike other living things, other plants and animals that need energy from the sun to grow, where plants need energy from the sun, where human beings need energy from the sun as well, your vitamin D that you find in the sun. So with the viruses, they do not directly use energy to maintain their structure. So viruses do not directly use energy to maintain their structure, and then they do not perform the typical life processes. So viruses do not perform in typical life processes such as eating, like your nutrition. Viruses do not do that. Respiration, your breathing, reproduction, your normal reproduction that you need. You learned about it from grade 7. Your excretion, removing of waste materials. So viruses do not perform that. That is some of the characteristics of viruses. And then we refer to viruses as obligate intracellular parasites. Why are we saying they are obligate intracellular parasite? Is because they cannot reproduce on their own. So viruses cannot reproduce on their own. If we had to take viruses here and put them here, look at them with our microscope, they cannot reproduce on their own. If you saw a video, if you remember the video that I've shown you of a bacteria, seeing how the bacteria, they will multiply. As I said, if you go to a bathroom, you don't wash your hands, you come here, there are probably bacteria in your hands, and they are reproducing by seconds after second. But then with viruses, they are parasites. They cannot reproduce on their own. They need a host. Okay. So for them to multiply, they multiply inside a host cell. So they need to get inside an animal or plant and go to a cell, and then they multiply using a generic material called DNA and RNA. You are going to learn more about this generic material in grade when you go to grade 12. So for viruses to multiply, they use a generic material called RNA and DNA. And having an RNA and DNA, it's one feature of life. So it's one feature that shows that, this thing is living because it has RNA and DNA. Hence, it makes biologists like to be confused. Is a virus living or non-living? Because it does not perform this 7 life forms that we need for something to be called a living thing or an organism. However, it has genetic material called DNA and RNA. And when something has DNA and RNA, it shows that thing is living. With DNA, I think the word DNA, and I said you learn more about this in grade 12, but if I can just briefly introduce it to you, the word DNA, almost when somebody they want to see, oh, is this your child? Is this your child? Let's go perform DNA, because a DNA is a molecule that stores all the genes, all the genetic information. It enables a thing to grow or to develop. So when somebody has a DNA and some sort of genetic information, and RNA, it helps this DNA to carry out instruction. Whatever the DNA wants to do, RNA, it helps it. So when you are living, you typically has this feature. That's why the viruses, they have these features, and they use them to grow, to multiply inside a whole cell. Which that's what it confuses the biologists. How are they not living? As I said, however, viruses do contain nucleic acids. The nucleic acids they're talking about, it's RNA and DNA. They contain nucleic acids like those found in living organisms, leading to ongoing debates about how to classify them. Hence, I said it's difficult to classify them because they have DNA and RNA, which is a feature of life. However, they do not perform the 7 life processes. Okay, so types of viruses, we're talking about most known viruses. It's influenza virus. So we have a virus called influenza virus. This one, it causes a flu. So when you're coughing, I have flu. It means an influenza virus. It went inside your cells, it started multiplying there, then it causes a flu. We call it influenza virus. Another type of a virus is called coronavirus. We know a lot about coronavirus. It is a very dangerous virus. It even made the world to stop because it causes COVID-19, which is one of the dangerous diseases, and is caused by coronavirus. In humans, in human beings, some of the commonly known diseases that are caused by a virus, it's HIV and AIDS. And I think we do know about HIV and AIDS. So it's caused by a virus that went inside a cell and multiply there. So we have another one, chickenpox. I think chickenpox, we know about it. There will be some things on your face, in your body, and that is a virus, and it causes chickenpox. Another one is herpes. Okay, so these are type of viruses, such as the well-known one. If you are being asked, what are the well-known types of viruses? It's influenza virus, it's coronavirus. Okay, what types of disease it causes? It causes flu, COVID-19, it can cause HIV and AIDS in human beings, chickenpox, and herpes. So, what does a virus look like? What does a virus look like? So, if your teacher asks you, draw a structure of a virus, a typical structure of the virus, this is what you will draw. You'll draw something. You'll draw something oval like this. We call it an envelope. It's an outside, and then you'll draw something like this, DNA or RNA. That's one, and it is protected. You'll draw those things that protected. We call it protein code. A protein code. So this is a typical structure of a virus, and if you were to draw it, that is how you will draw a typical structure of a virus. So now, let's say you're looking at a microscope again. How does a virus look like? This is one of the videos that some of the scientists and biologists took that shows a typical structure of a coronavirus. How does a coronavirus look like? not COVID-19. COVID-19 is a disease that is caused by a coronavirus. Let's look at the typical picture of or images of coronavirus. That's how a typical picture of a coronavirus would look like. Let's look at an actual coronavirus. That's how it looked like. You see something oval or round, some hairs around it. Hold and envelopes those hairs. That is a detailed view of a coronavirus. That's how it looks like. So yeah, that is a typical picture of a virus, and specifically a coronavirus, how it looks like. Okay, so let's just summarize what we learned about. If you didn't hear anything that I said, just learn about this. This can be your takeaway. Number one, biodiversity. It refers to a variety of all life forms on Earth. This includes microorganisms, and it is essential. It's very important for ecological balance or for our world balance. And when we talk about microorganisms, these are microscopic life forms such as bacteria, fungi, protists, and viruses, and they are often overlooked, but they are important. And all living things, all organisms are classified into 5 kingdoms: Monera, Protista, Fungi, Plantaria, and Animalia. And with the viruses, they do not fit into the 5 kingdoms, but they are the 5 kingdoms because they are not fully living. They cannot perform the 7 life processes, and they cannot perform life processes on their own. And because they need a host in order to perform them. And viruses are obligate intracellular parasites, meaning they reproduce only inside the host cell using DNA or RNA. You learn more about this in grade 12. And the common known virus diseases or diseases caused by viruses is flu, COVID-19, HIV/AIDS, chickenpox, and herpes. These are the common known ones. I hope you took something away from that. 2 summaries. If you didn't hear anything, I hope you have learned something from what biodiversity is, what are microorganisms, how we classify our living things into the 5 kingdoms, and what viruses are and why they don't fit into the 5 kingdoms, and how they produce, how they are parasites because they cannot produce on their own. And yeah, here's one thing that I would like you to do. You can even share your things, your answers under this video. Design your own microbe. Remember I said microorganisms, we are referring to these tiny living things. Imagine you are a scientist right now, or you're a biologist, and you have discovered a brand new microorganism that nobody has ever seen. Remember the microorganisms, we cannot see them with our naked eye. So now imagine that you have discovered a brand new microorganisms. Firstly, give your microbe is short for microorganisms. Give your microbe a creative name. Give it a creative name. What is the name of this tiny living organism, tiny living thing? Draw it and label it. I've shown you a typical structure of your virus. Draw your own organism structure. What does it have? Tell us whether is it a virus. You have learned about virus. Is it a bacterium, meaning a bacteria? We haven't learned about the bacteria, but now it means I'm giving you a task. Go look at bacteria before our next session. This is a fungus. Go look at a fungi so that you see how you can classify your organisms in a protist. So now I'm giving you a job to go read about those things. Where does it live? Does it live in water, soil, or inside a body, just like viruses? Is it helpful or is it harmful? Just like a virus, where we learn that viruses are harmful. Is it helpful or is it harmful? So yeah, share with us your activity and let's see how creative you can get. Thank you so much for coming. Ngiyaleboga. Dankie. Ngiyabonga.